you selling like an alpha? Does that question immediately rub you the wrong way? For many service professionals, it does. Why? Perhaps it conflicts with your personal values of doing good for your fellow man. Perhaps it sounds pushy. Perhaps it just doesn't sound like you. But what if I told you that to be the alpha in a sales situation does not mean you have to be pushy? And that if you're able to sell more of your worthy services, then won't you be able to do even more good for your fellow man? What's the first thing that two dogs do when they meet? Yep, they sniff butts. Now, as odd as this behavior may strike you, they're using their highly sensitive noses to obtain chemical information about the other dog's diet, gender, and emotional state, including pack order. Dog packs are considered a deference hierarchy, and having each member know their place is more efficient when hunting as well as less stressful in daily life. Thankfully, we humans don't engage in butt sniffing behavior when we greet one another, but we too have evolved from pack animals. We group together for safety and emotional well-being, and our ability to communicate with others is critical to our survival. And lest you think that we are completely different from dogs, in a study detailed in the Journal of Evolution and Human Behavior, scientists described how men lower the pitch of their voice when addressing a man they believe to be less dominant, and raise it when addressing a man they believe to be more dominant. Sounds an awful lot like a male dog whining in deference to a dominant dog, or emitting a guttural growl when he thinks he stands a chance now, doesn't it? In fact, as vocal pitch is typically related to physical size, taller men tend to have longer vocal tracts and folds, and vocal anatomy is also thought to signal a man's level of testosterone. Studies have shown that women favor men with low masculine voices at times when they are most fertile. And if you're a woman, try lowering the pitch of your voice the next time you're making a presentation in mixed company. You may be surprised at the subconscious reaction of your audience when they take you more seriously. Dr. Albert Mehrabian, author of Silent Messages, conducted several studies on nonverbal communication and found that 55% of our communication is nonverbal. This includes how we dress, our vocal pitch, rhythm, and intonation, as well as our posture, and has been shown to be a predictive factor in election results. During the 2004 presidential debates, the shorter candidate, George W. Bush, insisted that his podium be altered so that he would appear to be the same height as John Kerry. Now, just because you're not the tallest in the room doesn't mean that you can't be incredibly effective at selling yourself as a service, so let's continue. Social dominance has to do with things like intelligence and social skills, which aren't necessarily related to body size or whether you have the most testosterone. Social dominance is another way of describing status. According to Keith Johnstone, author of Impro, high status people do two key things, among others. Number one, they make slow, measured movements, never jerky or rapid. They do not react, whatever the stimulus. Number two, they pause longer before responding to questions or taking their turn in conversation. If it's noisy, they may say, until others pause, and then they speak, often with a pause first. In other words, they don't feel bad about interrupting before they're ready to speak. Low status people often clear their throat first or start talking over the conversation. In our society, we typically identify status with career and outward signs of wealth, but not always. Think of the last time you met a surgeon. He was probably either wearing a really nice suit or scrubs with a great pair of shoes and a fancy watch. The nurse likely told the patient that the surgeon was making his rounds and would see him as soon as he can, which translates to whenever the surgeon feels he can because he's in complete control of the time frame. As he finally made his way into the patient's room to discuss the planned surgery, he literally owned the room. He spoke calmly and confidently about a procedure he had performed many, many times. No one questioned his authority. He literally held your life or that of your loved one in the palm of his hands, and whatever he told you, you obeyed without question. There's no question that being a surgeon made him the alpha, but not always. If the surgeon and an auto mechanic were introduced at a cocktail party, okay, that's probably not likely, but let's go with it for a moment, then there would be a strong likelihood that the auto mechanic would defer to the surgeon as the alpha. But what happens when the warning light goes on in the surgeon's prized $300,000 Rolls-Royce Ghost and it needs service? The typically beta status mechanic now owns the room. It's he who has the expertise to resolve the problem of the surgeon, and when he says he needs to keep the car for a couple of days, the surgeon obeys. So being the alpha can depend upon the situation. But how does all of this psychology relate to sales? It tells us that as social beings, we naturally and often subconsciously place ourselves into a hierarchy when we meet someone. That hierarchy can change depending upon the situation. And sales is a whole lot easier if you take the alpha role for that particular interaction. Let me give you a real life example. I once worked with a salesman named Henry. Henry was the nicest guy in the world, a true gentleman, always thoughtful. He would work around your schedule, taking last minute changes in stride. He was the first to offer to get you a coffee when you met and was always understanding if your meeting was interrupted by a phone call. He was so nice, in fact, that some of the guys on our team joked that if it weren't that their wives might not appreciate it, they would want to marry Henry. And I think all of the women on our team had a secret wish to marry Henry, at least to know that their honeydew list would always get done with a smile. Now that's nice. So how did Henry do in sales? Well, he always seemed to barely scrape by and was constantly in fear for his job. Henry had become an order taker. When clients were ready to buy, Henry would take the order, but he never really sold anything. You see, Henry was a typical beta, and a typical beta does not have the respect of his clients. A typical beta subconsciously asks to be taken advantage of. He makes it easy. When clients are running late and don't text to let you know, when they don't show up and fail to call, and when they ask to reschedule at the last minute, they have assumed the alpha position and you are clearly the beta. You may be able to sell them additional services, but only when they decide the time is right. As the beta service provider, you have landed squarely in the friend zone. Contrast Henry with my other teammate, Stan. Now, Stan not only knew the intimate details of the services we were selling, but he was masterful at the art of the deal. He was a skilled negotiator, but very eloquent in his manner. When he went into a meeting, he was pleasant, yet got right down to business. He facilitated the entire conversation in such a way that the clients received the information they needed, but without dragging the discussion down into too much detail. Discussions flowed, tough questions were asked and quickly dealt with, and Stan was never afraid to ask for commitments that seemed more than what the client would ever agree to, and he frequently got them. During meetings, Stan often told stories about similar client scenarios and how what he was proposing had led to a positive outcome. He made it personal and interesting. And how did Stan do in sales? Well, let's just say that his very healthy commissions led to a huge house in Connecticut, another home at the shore, a boat, and a couple of very nice cars, plus several kids in college. Yes, Stan did quite well. So what are the sales tips that we should glean from these examples, and how does this relate to you as the service provider? How do you take the alpha position when selling your services to a potential client? First, dress the part of your profession. In fact, dress a little better, even if you're on Zoom. If you're a healthcare provider, wear a nicely pressed white jacket at a minimum. For men, a pressed shirt with a collar, ties always help, and dress pants with business shoes should be worn underneath, assuming you're not on Zoom, then that's optional. For women, a nice blouse and dress pants with good shoes. If you're in business, wear a suit. Remember the old adage, don't dress for the job that you have, dress for the job you want. Dressing well shows that you're successful, and perfect grooming should go without saying. Second, like the surgeon, you are the expert in the services that you provide. Think about all of the years that you spent studying your profession and learning through the experience of working with patients or clients. No one knows your subject area like you do. Own that. When you meet a potential client, feel that confidence. You'll know you're the alpha when people are reacting to you and not the other way around. Any signs of neediness will immediately drop you into the friend zone. After explaining your services, questions like, so what do you think? Or does that seem to be of interest? will drop your status like a bowling ball through thin ice. Explain your services in a way that connects with the prospect's emotional needs, and then play hard to get, as I will outline in a moment. Third, take control of the time. When your client controls the time, you've just handed over your alpha status. Who has the most respect in high school? The girls who play hard to get or the girls who are easy? Is it the guys who are always available to help with homework or the ones that seem a little aloof? You are a busy professional, so act like one. Even if you're not as busy as you'd like to be, if you make it seem as though your schedule is wide open, then clients will not feel a sense of urgency to make an appointment. And when they do make one, they'll think nothing of canceling at the last minute or making changes. Never ask what time works well for you. Always provide a single option. I have a 30-minute opening for a no-obligation consult this Wednesday at 4. Will that work? If that doesn't work, then offer a single backup option later in the week. Ideally, you'll want to try to see new clients during the same week as their request. Strike while the iron is hot, as they say. But make it clear by your schedule that you're a busy, successful professional, because you are. If the client shows up late, honor the original end time of the appointment, but don't adjust your fees since you have another client right after this. They're likely to adjust their behavior for next time. And fourth, when selling your services to a potential client, keep your message focused on the human connection. I'll talk about more about that in future sessions. But the moment that you begin quoting facts and figures about your service, you've lost your prospect. If they ask this type of question, respond with as high a level of detail as possible, and then play hard to get, ask the prospect to qualify themselves to you. For example, if we decide to work together, you'll have a chance to review the financial details of each of my packages, but what's important for the moment is to determine whether we would be a good fit. The type of client who's most successful in my program is emotionally ready to make a commitment, to make changes in their life, willing to commit to an 8-week program, which may involve some ups and downs along the way, and who has enough of an open mind to follow some guidance, which may appear at first to be somewhat unconventional. Now, if that doesn't sound like you, we should probably just agree to stay in touch in the event your situation changes. But if you believe that you can make that level of commitment, then I have an opening this Friday at 3 for us to get started. In Seth Godin's best-selling marketing book, Free Prize Inside, he talks about the story behind the service being what people are really buying, not the metrics of how it stacks up against the competition. And Oren Klaff, the sales guru and author I referred to in our last session, talks about how people tend to want something more when they feel they have to earn it. Studies have shown that consumers tend to use coupons much more frequently when they had to earn them through playing a game than if they're simply handed to them. And fifth, provide a clear context for what you're selling. More on this in future sessions, but remember the old KISS acronym, keep it simple, stupid? No one knows your services like you do, nor could they ever hope to. So stop trying to take them through the details. Humans have an attention span of 20 minutes tops. If they're looking at your website, it's about 8 seconds, but 20 minutes if they're having a conversation. So there's a good reason why TED Talks don't go longer than that, for example. And some people have an even lower attention span, and studies are showing that our attention span is shrinking daily due to all of our digital distractions. In fact, the moment that they stop engaging with you with questions, or they get that glassy look in their eyes, sneak a peek at their watch or close their notebook, stop. Then go back to my step 4 and play hard to get again. Remain mindful of early signals before they get glassy-eyed and just stop. If you're presenting in a workshop and you're running out of time, cut your material, but don't try to cram the rest of your message in by speaking more quickly. Your audience simply will not absorb it. The moment you sense that you're losing your audience, pause and make a comment, something like, well, I can see we're almost out of time here, and I do need to wrap up to make another commitment. So let me just leave you with this thought, and then jump to your conclusion. In short, to be the alpha does not mean that you must be forceful or dominate others. That strategy will tend to be very short-lived in sales and not lead to those long-term client relationships that you seek. You must first truly believe that what you're selling is in the best interest of the client. Sometimes they just need a little help to realize it. We're all humans and not animals after all. Being the alpha does mean taking control of the situation and owning it in order to drive the best possible outcome for all. We've covered a lot of psychology in this session, but it's an important foundation for the steps that we'll take in future segments on creating a successful pitch for your services. Now, let's apply what you've learned to your practice or businesses. Download the companion guide or answer these questions as your reflection homework. First question, regarding the alpha as expert. In 3 sentences or less, describe why your educational experience or your work experience or your life experience makes you exceptionally good at what you do. Second question, which face-to-face or phone sales channels or techniques do you use? Check all of them that apply, and if you're not using all these methods for your practice or business, consider how you might be able to incorporate them. Some examples include being part of a local networking group, offering free workshops or webinars, a no obligation consultation, whether or not you accept walk-ins, outbound telemarketing, responding to inbound calls, or other methods. Third question, what do you plan to do differently to demonstrate to your clients and prospects that your time is valuable? Fourth question, think about market forces. What 3 things about your industry are changing that make this the perfect time for a prospect to purchase your services? The change might be economic. So what are the financial changes in your industry or in your service that make this a perfect time to buy? Could be inflation, credit availability, perhaps a limited time offer, or a pending price increase. Social changes, we have lots of those now. What trends make this a perfect time to buy? Why are more people interested in your services now than ever before? Examples could be organic becoming mainstream, the aging population of executive women concerned about their appearance to remain competitive, the high adoption rate of smartphones, social movements that are making your service more attractive, health statistics. On a personal level, the prospect's own likely future if they don't buy your service or one like it. Thirdly, technology. What advances in technology make it feasible to do now what you could not have done before? Examples might be new equipment that allows you to diagnose more accurately, automated processes that allow you to deliver your services more efficiently and pass the savings along to your clients, advances in ways that you're able to interact with your clients through tools, integration of the impact of technology trends on the lives of your clients with the direction of your practice. And fifth, think about the I want it because I don't want to lose it alpha position. When you're explaining your services to a prospect and they either begin to give physical signs that their mind is wandering or you reach the end of the explanation, what could you do to play hard to get? Practice those, really dig in and reflect on those questions, and I'll see you in the next module. Happy selling.